It's time to crown a champion. DreamHack Summer 2018. It has all come down to this. It is Furyhunter taking on Penhadani. 200 players came into this arena 2 days ago, and now we have our final two who stand out amongst the rest. It's been an incredible journey to get here, but we are not done just yet. Bringing you all of the action here for our finals is going to be Falcone and Derek on the desk. Guys, it's been quite a ride, but these are two very deserving players, two players who have not had that breakout performance yet, though Furyhunter is more well-known because of his warrior, his namesake Furyhunter Control Warrior that he has brought today, but we'll get to that in a minute. And then Penhadani is a player from Hungary, a player who is on the HCT ballot. We don't know just yet if he's made it onto the team for Hungary, but he's been playing incredibly well. His Shutterwalk play in the last series against Green Sheep, very, very clean. He has some good aggressive style in his builds as well. And all in all, just a very impressive run here. How are you feeling about this matchup, Derek?
I feel like this could be going absolutely either way. Both players with fairly similar styles of play, with a very diverse lineup of decks, with Odd Rogue on both sides in terms of the aggressive styles of play, but also both players slowing it down with the Shutterwalk Shaman for Penhadani, and then for Furyhunter, as you mentioned, the Odd Warrior that he is so well known for. And speaking of HGG ballots, I believe Furyhunter is also on his ballot for Denmark, and I'm sure both players would be wishing they'd got to this point before the voting had unfortunately closed. But either way, huge boon to their Hearthstone careers and a lot of points to help them along the way as well.
Yeah, I had that exact conversation with Furyhunter a little bit earlier, but actually, he's hoping to make it, but with both Hoys on the ballot with him and Crane, it's going to be difficult. Penhadani was on the team last year, actually, so he has a little bit of experience. Just because we don't know him that well doesn't mean he's been doing nothing to do with Hearthstone. He's been around, and now is his big chance to make sure that we all know who he is. Furyhunter is a tough opponent, though, and I'm a little bit biased. I've known Furyhunter myself for a long time. I've been friends with him online for a long time, and his Control Warrior is a really good deck. He has been dominating with it this event so far.
Well, we may not really have known his name coming into this, but there are plenty of people who know his name now, namely the players that Penhadani and Furyhunter have beaten to get to this point. So let's take a look at the bracket and just check out their roads to get to the finals here. For Furyhunter, he originally had to defeat Show. That is no small task, and then he took on Albrechtsen earlier today, finally defeated Fayley in an epic 5-game series to make it all the way to the finals. Penhadani, he beat Muzzy in the top 16. Now that arguably was the most difficult opponent in the top 16, and he handled him no trouble, and then we just saw him take down AKA Wonder earlier today, and Green Sheep just now, finally finishing game number 5 with that Shutterwalk Shaman to get to the finals. But only one can be the champion of DreamHack Summer 2018, taking home $5,000, taking home a whole bundle of HCT points. And honestly, I don't know who it's going to be. I think you said it right, Derek. This one could go either way. But looking at the lineups just a little bit, Furyhunter's Warrior seems to be maybe a weak point if that Shutterwalk Shaman is not banned away from Penhadani. We saw Penhadani win with that Shaman, even in unfavorable matchups. It's an incredibly powerful deck, and Furyhunter's Warrior can do a lot of things, but beating combo decks is really not one of those things.
Shutterwalk Shaman with the inevitable win condition will get there eventually, and the Warrior doesn't exactly have that much tempo of its own to take down the Shaman.
Yeah, I think that may be a big reason why we see Furyhunter possibly banning away that Shutterwalk Shaman. As you said, it is a real weak point for his deck. And even though he has some of the more aggressive strategies like the Odd Rogue in his lineup as well, from pretty consistently from Penhadani, we've seen the ability for him to take out those aggressive decks with his Shutterwalk Shaman. So that would not feel like a ban that's out of place for me. However, Penhadani's ban feels like it's a little bit more difficult, maybe getting rid of the Token Druid, because those can be some very long, grueling games. And also for Penhadani, with the likes of his, I don't know, his Odd Rogue and the Shutterwalk Shaman, it could be a little bit too consistent at getting a board that he cannot deal with. But it's very interesting what the bans will be here. Not an obvious ban for either player.
No, it certainly is not obvious. But coming into this tournament, the lineups that would succeed were not obvious either by any means, especially with DreamHack Austin just being a couple weeks ago, the meta being so diverse right now and still a bit unexplored, I would have to say at this point. So I personally am surprised that we're seeing both a Shutterwalk Shaman and this Control Warrior in the finals here. I don't think many people could have accomplished these same feats, but we can now take a look at the bans and the picks and see what exactly has been banned away. We speculated it might be that Shutterwalk Shaman banned from Penhadani and maybe Furyhunter's Druid. Oh my goodness.
Ooh.
Okay.
No.
So Furyhunter has banned the Shaman largely because his warrior can't defeat it. But Penhadani's gone ahead and banned Furyhunter's warrior as well. So it's going to be Furyhunter with the Rogue, Warlock, Druid, Warrior gone. Penhadani with the Rogue, Warlock, Druid, Shaman gone. So same lineup. Do they both have the even Warlock as well?
Yes, I believe they both do. And looking at the lineup, or the ban, I should say, sorry, for Penhadani of getting rid of the warrior, I think the reasoning there is trifold in that, one, Furyhunter is really blooming good at this deck, as we've consistently seen. Two, Penhadani has no idea how to really play against it because it's such a rare deck at this point in the format. And three, it's just pretty good against his lineup. We've seen it take down the token druid by Furyhunter in a very well-played game until right up at the end when he missed a surprise lethal there. But even so,
he was tunneling. He was tunneling on surviving at the time. I spoke to him about that after, actually. But he didn't care too much. He still won. He said that making that play was still 100%, even with the miss lethal, so he wasn't too bothered. I am so disappointed, Cora. My two favorite decks, the Shaman and the Warrior, in these lineups have been banned.
I know.
However, it is worth noting now, even Warlock, Token Druid, Odd Rogue, three decks which are in just identical or very similar, at least, in both of these lineups. It's not the Miracle Rogue that we'd expect. It's not the Taunt Druid that's been more common. These are the decks that have made it to the grand final.
And I will say, when you have an entirely mirrored lineup, when you have the three exact same decks on both sides, a lot of this play is going to come down to, one, matchups which you can't control, but two, gameplay. And when you're looking at these two players, Furyhunter, I would normally say is the player that I would think would be able to edge in gameplay, but Furyhunter's had a couple of slip-ups this weekend. His confidence has been shaken a couple of times. He's still here in the finals, but he's going to have to clean up his play at least a little bit, whereas Penhadani has been very, very consistent. So now I have to ask the question, who do you guys think it's going to be? Falcone, I know you're a Furyhunter fan, so I don't think your answer is going to surprise me too much.
His warrior got banned, Cora.
I know. I love Warrior too.
Maybe that changes things. No, it's fine. I'm still gonna back my boy Furyhunter.
Yeah, I think in this one, I agree with you that Furyhunter has obviously made a couple of glaring mistakes, but Penhadani's play, I would actually argue, has been not perfect throughout this tournament. And from him, it has not been glaring, obvious mistakes like missed lethals or things like that. It's kind of been more matchup misunderstandings, I would say, for the most part, which I would argue is more egregious, more likely to lead to a loss. And therefore, for the same reasoning, I'm also going to go with Chaboy Furyhunter.
Ooh, that means you have to pick Penhadani now, Cora. It's the rules.
I unfortunately cannot pick Penhadani. You've got a desk united against Penhadani here, but you know what? I, for one, would be happy to be wrong here. Both of these players very, very deserving of this spot in the finals, but who will it be taking that title for their own? It is Penhadani versus Furyhunter in your DreamHack Summer 2018 finals starting now.
Furyhunter versus Penhadani. It all comes down to this. We've both said that we think Furyhunter is maybe just that little bit better of a player than Penhadani, but anything can happen. And Derek, one of the things you said to me yesterday going into one of the Hearthstone games between two teammates is their lineups are very similar. That means this isn't a series about the lineups. This is a series about the play. I guess the same thing can be said here. Yeah,
it definitely can. However, there are a couple of very small things that could make a difference in this matchup, one of which we were actually talking to Furyhunter about, where in his Token Druid deck list, he's got that very sneaky little Cenarius thrown in there, a card which has not been all too represented for a long time in Hearthstone, but he says could help him to find his edge in the mirror.
He did.
But we're going to be jumping into a much quicker matchup, I would assume, than the infamous token Druid mirror, which is this Odd Rogue for Furyhunter up against the even Warlock for Penhadani, which, I mean, we've seen the power of Odd Rogue up against any kind of Warlock. The fact that they take a little bit of a while to get going, can't really make their power plays until turn 4 usually, when they're not on the coin, means Furyhunter with a Hench Clan Thug to get things rolling is looking to be in a pretty good spot.
Got Diamond for turn 1. He's perhaps looking for a Cold Blood as well, if he can get that early damage going in and then back it up with a Hench Clan Thug and Fungal Mancer later on. Things are looking good. Even got a Valspine Slayer to blow up the first Dragon or Twilight Drake.
Things are looking pretty good, I will agree with you there, but Penhadani in his own right got a pretty respectable hand to be moving along with. Got the removal you want in the form of Hellfire and Defile, which is far from a guaranteed board clear against what the Rogue is throwing down. It's not like the likes of, I don't know, old school even Paladin, where this would usually give you a complete board clear every time, because in this Rogue deck, you've got Divine Shields with the Argent Squire, you've got 4/4 Hench Clan Thugs, which will obviously be growing every single turn. So for Furyhunter, it's not like he just has to close his eyes and pray the removal isn't there. If played correctly, I think he should be able to maneuver the health totals on his minions, sequence them correctly to the point where he can dodge the real power removal turns from Penhadani.
Acidic Swamp Ooze is a very great tool for Penhadani to have, though, as the most likely play from Furyhunter this turn would usually be the dagger up into the Hench Clan on turn 3. Penhadani using his acidic Swamp Ooze to essentially negate this turn entirely, whilst also squeezing in a tap, would slow down Furyhunter significantly. He's hesitating, though.
Yeah, there's a lot to consider here already. The main things, as you mentioned, are Ooze, Hellfire, and I would add Doomsayer into the mix as well.
Okay.
And basically, those 3 things he has to consider will decide whether he goes for Coin Thug or just for the dagger. If he's afraid of Ooze, this is a significantly stronger play against the Acidic Swamp Ooze, as he will be able to not have his dagger destroyed on this turn, and then buff the Hench Clan Thug, so it's also out of range of Hellfire by the time that comes down. This is much stronger against both Hellfire and Ooze. The downside, obviously, being if a Doomsayer had come down here, it might be a little bit scary for Furyhunter losing his copy of Hench Clan Thug before he can start getting the buffs. Or he would actually have been able to clear it off anyway, so it's better against all of them.
However, Vulgar Homunculus is a bit of a roadblock there, as Furyhunter's weapon and Diamol alone will not be enough to clear this. However, Cold Blood, I guess with the Argent Squire going down first, is enough for the Diamol to do it. But it doesn't matter, because then he can't use his hero power and won't be able to buff up the Hench Clan Thug. So I'm not seeing a clear-cut way that Furyhunter can play around Hellfire here.
Yeah, and if you go for the Argent Squire into Hellfire, you not only open yourself up to Hellfire, but also Defile at that point. You would have a 1 health, the Argent Squire, which effectively acts as a 2 health minion, and then the 3 health Hench Clan Thug as well.
One option was just Cold Blood without the combo, use the Diamol and the weapon to trade in, and then that would have played around Hellfire. But Furyhunter goes with this play instead. I guess Argent Squire does survive Hellfire, so worst case scenario, he still has a 1/1 on the board. He still curves into the second Hench Clan and also Cold Blood, so next turn's not looking too bad regardless.
I mean, the thing is, we're talking about the way he can perfectly play around Hellfire, keep all his important minions alive, but very often that's just not possible, so you have to make the best consolation prize you can, which here is not bad. He's still got a dagger equipped, so he can go for the Hench Clan Thug on this turn. He can go nice and wide on the board with the Firefly as well as Hench Clan if he wants to set up, obviously, for that copy of Fungal Mancer, really start turning up the pressure. I think it's still looking all right here for Furyhunter.
Yeah, no, I entirely agree. It has worked out. It's like, well, if you don't have Hellfire, I probably win just based off of how strong the start was. If you do, here you go. Here's my refill. Now deal with that. He's going to be thinking about Defile now. The Firefly being the 2 health minion after the Argent Squire is the 1 health minion is something he's got to think about. But regardless, Hench Clan Thug will be out of range, assuming that weapon goes in. So even Defile's still not the end of the world.
Yeah, and I mean, even here from Furyhunter, another weird turn. Like you said, Defile was something to really consider, and if he'd gone for the Cold Blood on this turn on the Argent Squire, yes, it would have been very vulnerable to say a Defile to clear it off. But that's 2 mana out of Penhadani's turn that he can't use on something else. And given that Furyhunter kind of has to bring his opponent down to less than 15 health on this turn, maybe demanding a Defile from this turn on your opponent so they can't go for the Hooked Reaver until you have the ability to activate Vilespine was definitely something to consider to make your opponent's turns a little bit more awkward, because now in this instance, if Penhadani wants to just throw out the Hooked Reaver on this turn, obviously with this being an odd rogue, he knows there will be no activator for a Vilespine quite yet.
That is true, but if he's playing the Hooked Reaver, Furyhunter already has a board. As we can see, Cold Blood will do some serious work. Fungalmancer also would have the potential of doing some serious work. So it's not infallible. I'd say Furyhunter made quite a calculated play there. He's saying, clear my board or play your big minion, one or the other. Similar to what you described if he went the other way around. I think it works pretty well here too.
Yeah, it does work decently here. If he was expecting exactly,
okay.
Sorry, if he was expecting exactly the Hooked Reaver, I think the Cold Blood play was a little bit stronger because he would have got the 4 damage in straight away.
Sure.
Could have got another attack with it, but maybe it was more vulnerable to something like a Defile. So it's still not a bad play. He's still looking to be in a pretty fantastic spot, as I'm trying to think off the top of my head here. Double Cold Blood, not lethal quite yet, I don't believe, but getting remarkably close.
Yeah, frighteningly close with the Hench Clan Thug buff again here. 5, 6, 10 damage going into the face, or 10 damage available rather, with the Cold Blood, which he's probably going to hold back just a Vilespine combo activator, actually.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at. Well, actually, having said that, he needs to think here, if I go for the buff on this turn and he plays Hooked Reaver, do I just win anyway?
Yeah. with Fungalmancer in
exactly.
hand. If he can't use the Vilespine, that's true.
Doing the maths here, and I think he's come to the conclusion, yes, I do just win anyway. As we can see here, so much damage coming in. A Hooked Reaver wouldn't even come close to preventing Penhadani from dying. However, Twilight Drake into the Sun Fury Protector obviously puts up a much larger wall in the way.
It's going to be, what, a 4-9?
I think a 4-9, yeah.
It's the best he's got. It's the only way he has.
Obviously not actually going to be enough to protect him on this turn with the Fungalmancer buff. So Furyhunter, I think, sequencing out his plays, especially at the end there, in a very nice fashion. And even right at the start, as I was talking about the 3 things he needs to be afraid of Ooze, Hellfire, and Doomsayer, I think of going for the slightly more unconventional play of Coin Hench Clan Thug instead of the Dagger into Hench Clan Thug, kind of made him resilient against all 3.
I said this yesterday, and you grimaced when I said it then. I'm going to say it again now. I think Odd Rogue is arguably even harder to play than Miracle Rogue. Yeah. Managing the Cold Bloods, managing these weaker minions, knowing when to play the Hench Clan instead of playing the Dagger on turn 2. And we saw a very calculated play from Furyhunter. He got rewarded, and now Penhadani is down to his own Odd Rogue and the token Druid. Derek, which one does he queue into this Odd Rogue?
Well, obviously the Odd Rogue is going to be an even matchup, despite it being an Odd Rogue, haha.
Please.
But the token Druid could potentially, I don't know, it's just whether he thinks it's a better matchup than the 50-50. There's a lot working for you in that matchup, obviously with the likes of Spellstone. You can get a nice wide a nice wide spreading Plague to really give you the ability to fight back against the early effects of something like a Cold Blood or a Hench Clan Thug. But here for Penhadani, he is going to be going with the token Druid, and I mean, it's got an all right hand. Any hand with Spellstone in your starting hand is pretty good against Odd Rogue.
Spellstone is the key card. A while back, I think you were saying you think Spellstone is just one of the best cards in Hearthstone, right?
I did say that after I think I'd lost 5 games in a row as Miracle Rogue against Taunt Druid. I did say Spellstone, or Jasper Spellstone, is the best card in Hearthstone at the moment, and I think that was a slight salty exaggeration, perhaps.
Okay, but the reasoning is there.
It's really good.
1 mana, deals 6 damage.
Yeah.
The fact that it will deal with a Firefly that has Cold Blood on it. It won't quite deal with an Argent Squire that has Cold Blood on it.
That's fair, and I mean, I was just kind of making a Craigasm face there at Penhadani's hand right at the start. Wild Growth into the Oaken Summons. Spellstone as well. So much removal, so much ramp there.
Oh,
another one picked up as well. This is such a nice starting hand, but the counter-argument to that is obviously, look at Furyhunter's hand. This is very blooming aggressive indeed. Can start turning up the damage super quickly, which maybe for Penhadani means he can't go through the perfect sequence that he wants to of something like Wild Growth into the Oaken Summons.
It's going to be a difficult sequence of turns for Penhadani here, as he's going to have to consider just playing Spellstone. Goes with the Wild Growth, playing this for the long game. Do you think that was a little bit risky, a little bit greedy, Derek, or was this about the right way to go?
Of what? Saving the coin to go...
Right, yeah, I just not clearing the Argent Spire, going for Growth instead.
Yes, I think so. If you're going for something like double Spellstone here, then what do you do when you're met with a Vicious Fledgling or Hench Column Thug? There are other minions that are very important to remove. Whereas if you look at the hand with both Oaken Summons and the copy of Branching Paths, there's a tremendous amount of armor gain. But when you have a 9-attack minion attacking you in the face every turn, you need quite a staggering amount of armor to be able to stand up to it at all.
Well, he simply has to clear this 9-1 now. I don't think there's any two ways about it. What else can he do? He's just going to die otherwise. Penhadani does not run a copy of Ironwood Golem in his deck, so Oaken Summons is guaranteed Violet Teacher, which isn't good enough. I think he was forced into making this play now.
Ooh, this is an interesting talking point, though, that he decided to not go Coin Nourish for mana into double Spellstone. Instead, he wants the Hero Power through to the face. And I've got to be honest, in these kind of matchups where you need every single point of mana to stand up to the super aggression, I think I would have quite a lot preferred the coin into Nourish play in addition to the 2 Spellstones, because then on the next turn you're going up to, what, 7 mana? Which means the numbers, I suppose, don't work out perfectly for going for 2 8-drops. But having 2 extra mana crystals makes all the difference in the world in this matchup, and he had the time to play it there.
I still agree with you, though. Like, is there a specific break point that having 16 health plays around? Not that I can think of. Both Cold Bloods are gone, so the vast majority of the burst that can come out of Furyhunter's deck should have been used up already.
Now, Furyhunter, just wondering, do I need to play around Plague? Penhadani did keep the coin, or I shouldn't say Furyhunter isn't imagining something he specifically kept the coin for, but coin is still in hand for Penhadani, and Furyhunter will obviously know that. Wondering about Plague, so does he go for the copy of Southsea Deckhand on this turn to go even wider into Plague? He's wondering if he can get away with the Vicious Fledgling on this turn, but instead he's just going for pure damage with the weapon instead.
Yeah, okay, well, he's just slowly chipping away at Penhadani. He's still got time for now as Penhadani draws an unplayable card from his deck. He can't play Nourish Coin Oaken Summons, which is a disaster for him at this point. Now we're seeing why playing that Nourish last turn really will have come in handy.
Absolutely. I mean, even if he'd just gone for Oaken Summons Hero Power on this turn, great, you've gained a bit of armor. You are then ahead on board at that point, actually. Then you can really catch up on the board, utilize the effect of Violet Teacher with Branching Paths for armor to start to pull back in the game. He's going for it now and is effectively just passing the turn. This has worked out so much worse for Penhadani.
He has the ability to stall for a little while, though. Oaken Summons Branching Paths to gain 12 armor. Sorry, to gain 18 armor. Is an option next turn before he can then coin out Ultimate Infestation. So he is okay. He's got the survivability for the time being.
That's true. And obviously with the Ultimate Infestation being picked up off the top, having the coin in hand means he can go for it for a turn earlier, which is actually pretty beneficial in this instance. But the play to which we were alluding a little bit earlier, where you go coin Nourish and double Spellstone, the UI wasn't even in hand at that point, so he couldn't really rely on getting that.
But yeah, now he is forced into making this play, gaining all of the armor he possibly can to survive into Ultimate Infestation. And Ultimate Infestation is going to do some serious work here, even just clearing up the Captain Greenskin, or possibly even Vicious Fledgling potentially hitting the board this turn.
Yeah. I think serious work is potentially even an understatement of what Ultimate Infestation is going to do there. This is his turn 6, and he's playing UI. This is like old school Jade Druid levels of disgusting in terms of an early UI. It's probably just going to seal out the game in his favor because he's back up to, what, 26 health in this instance. Furyhunter with no real way to put on enough pressure. Penhadani looking like he's still going to be able to take this game despite a double Cold Blood opening.
It was really dicey back then when there was a 9-1 Argent Squire on the board, and Penhadani had to play not one, but both Spellstones to deal with it. But now he definitely put himself in a stable position. Ultimate Infestation will clear up one of these minions, give him his 5/5, and pretty much draw the rest of his deck. And the next turn, he should be able to play a Whispering Woods followed by a Soul of the Forest to lock this game out. Maybe he's going to need to work a little bit harder to remove Furyhunter's minions, actually. We'll see what he gets from this.
Killing off the Fledgling here I do like as well. Both Cold Bloods are gone, so the potential upside of it is a little bit lessened. But if there's still a Fungal Mancer, or even if it just does regular vicious fledgling things, it's still worth getting off, even if it's just 2 less damage than the copy of Captain Greenskin we see there. And Furyhunter getting some pretty respectable draws, to be fair to him. And he's been sequencing out his threats pretty well, I would say. The real question, though, obviously just comes down to his turn where he decided to dagger and pass instead of the fledgling.
Yeah, he's really struggling now as a result of that. Well, he's not struggling now. He's about to be struggling. We've got Spreading Plague as a potential play next turn. Spreading Plague plus Soul of the Forest. I mean, it's necessary now. He has to play the Spreading Plague, or he will just die to what is still a very aggressive board from Furyhunter, thanks to the power of the Fungal Mancer. Do you think there's any doubt in Penhadani's mind at the moment? Any speculation that perhaps Furyhunter could still get through this wall?
Well, there's always fear. When you're in the finals, you kind of start to have the mindset of, oh my goodness, you know, I've never got here before. Maybe he's got, fears. He's got a curse on him that he always goes a certain score and never makes it through to the end. That's what Green Sheep was saying at the start of this tournament, is he always goes 3-3 and drops out every single tournament. He went 3-2 after the first day and then made it through to the semi-finals. So Penhadani, while he will be doubting his chances here, I think he should be feeling in a pretty good spot if he takes an objective look at the board.
Yeah, he's got 1 branching path to buff up everything that survives this turn. That alone isn't quite going to be enough, but if he does draw a Savage Roar or a second branching paths... Oh no, he played the first branching paths. Savage Roar would have done it. He didn't quite get there. So he now has to calculate how much of this board he needs to deal with, which I would imagine the answer to that is as much as possible.
Just clear things off, play the Malfurion, I suppose, for a couple of extra taunts, bit of extra armor, and that's the kind of point where you block out the game. I mean, this is what you do after you've played Ultimate Infestation. You throw taunts onto the board in any kind of random fashion because you have so much mana, so much value. As long as you don't die, you're probably going to win. And to be fair, from Furyhunter's game in the quarterfinals, this was where he messed up. He was against an odd paladin, I believe, and gave himself the ability to lose because he did sequence his Spreading Plagues incorrectly. So I suppose it's obviously not quite as simple as just throwing out your cards in any random order, but as long as you know generally what you're doing, after an Ultimate Infestation, you should just be aggro.
Sure, and Skullbane, although one of the more powerful drawers in Furyhunter's deck, not what he needs immediately to cause these big threats. Then again, if Penhadani doesn't pick up lethal this turn, he may again need to focus on clearing all of this up. Wild Growth certainly is not lethal. If he plays Nourish, he won't be able to fit in a Savage Roar with branching paths, so I think Furyhunter's okay for the time being. I think it's 16 damage with the Savage Roar, sorry, the branching paths and the hero power. Even less because he can't attack, he doesn't get the boost to his face.
I mean, Penhadani can set up a situation where he just wins every time on the following turn. As long as he doesn't die to Leroy, that's the only thing I can imagine that he needs to actually realistically play around in this scenario, because he will be keeping track and know that that last card in hand is a Flame Elemental. And so going wide with the Teacher here, he realizes I'm not going to die, especially with a pickup of Swipe as well. And as long as he doesn't let his opponent get lethal with Leroy, he will have reverse lethal every time on the following turn.
Still taking this slow though. No need to rush this turn out, make any game-altering mistakes. And it's that situation now where Penhadani's thinking, not how do I win, how do I lose? And how do I play around that tiny percentage of losing? And as you said, he knows that's a Flame Elemental. SI7 Agent not going to do anything whatsoever for Furyhunter's game.
This guy's toast.
And I think that's a concede right there, as Penhadani takes his first win of the series with the Token Druid, eliminating Furyhunter's odd road and leaving him with his own even Warlock and his own Token Druid, as this weird triangle of matchups takes one step forward.
Yeah, for Furyhunter now, an interesting choice as to what he goes for next. Obviously a straight-up mirror with the Token Druid, with the slight addendum that he feels he's got a tech card in Cenarius, the big classic Druid legendary.
Does think he's the favorite there.
Exactly, to give him a slight edge in that matchup. I would imagine it's not a big edge he's getting in that scenario, but good enough to put him in the lead there. So maybe he wants to take his chances with an even matchup However, for even lock, you still do have the likes of Dread Infernal, Hellfire, Defile, so many board clears to fight back against the likes of the Whispering Woods, Soul of the Forest, cards like that. And also, you just have bloomin' big giants that a Druid without Naturalize cannot deal with.
Yeah, I agree with the even Warlock pickup here. Although his Druid has been teched slightly to win in the mirror, we were both talking to Furyhunter a little bit before this game, and he did say, honestly, I'm not completely certain how I play the scenarios. I've not played the matchup that much before. He's probably, exaggerating a little bit. Like, he's confident in his game plan. However, this matchup just seems a little bit safer to me.
Yeah, and, he's put it in a deck for a reason. He knows the general idea is after it goes Plague, you've both got big stale boards, yours becomes bigger and you win, which, could be an eventuality if Penhadani wins this game as well. He's got a respectable hand this time, but I mean, nothing like the hand we were looking at against the Odd Rogue, which really just looked like the best possible hand he could have in that scenario with, what was it, Wild Growth, double Spellstone, Oaken Summons, just the best possible hand.
It was necessary against the start that Furyhunter had. Without the double Spellstone, he would have taken a lot more damage from that Argent Squire. But yeah, things looking a little bit slower for him now. Yeah, he gets a nice early Nourish, which means Ultimate Infestation won't take too long, as it sounds like another tournament somewhere in the venue has just finished, because there's a huge round of applause. But double Mountain Giant in Furyhunter's hand. This is going to be an explosive start over the next few turns.
Absolutely. I mean, we've been talking about perfect hands. This is it against the Druid. As long as they don't go super wide with an early Whispering Woods that you don't have an answer to, which Furyhunter has anyway, he can just go off with his Mountain Giants on turn 4, turn 5. I mean, I guess maybe he'll try and pepper a Twilight Drake in there somewhere along the way, but he needs to start pressuring, basically, and he has the perfect cards to do so.
So now Furyhunter really taking some time to work out if he wants to use one of these 2-drops. Goes with the Plated Beetle, getting himself on the board, nothing wrong with that. He can still play Mountain Giant next turn, still tap and play Mountain Giant next turn, thanks to the cheap Odd Rogue, even Warlock hero power.
Yeah, it's reasonable. I mean, I know a lot of people who don't like pretty much at all the Beetle in this taunt or in this even Warlock, because it gets you further away from activating your hooked Reavers.
Sure.
But as the way it currently stands, it shouldn't be too important. And what this does also give in this exact scenario is Furyhunter the ability to play Hellfire to clear off a Violet Teacher. I imagine he won't be doing it yet, but maybe in that scenario we could have seen a trade into the Violet Teacher, just so if something like Wrath or Spellstone comes down on this turn, Penhadani is unable to stick this Violet Teacher because the Hellfire would have cleared it off.
Yeah, but Penhadani going to grasp this situation with Furyhunter doing nothing and summoning, yeah, a reasonable board. Yes, it's not quite going to compete in terms of speed with the Mountain Giant, but the Druid has a lot of buffs in the deck, and Furyhunter is going to want to play around this any way he can. Hellfire plus a trade is the only clear-cut way of dealing with all of this, I think, and he really wants this 8 damage to connect to the face.
He does, but I mean, it's less about the pure face damage you're getting through Mountain Giants. It's more about the board dominance that they afford you, I would say, because there's a tremendous amount of armor gain in this Druid deck through Branching Paths, Oaken Summons, Ultimate Infestation, cards like that. Generally, I find if you're just attacking through to face and succeeding on board control, you'll probably just lose the race, because they go Savage Roar or Branching Paths and you just die, which is why I do like the trade here from Furyhunter to take out the Teacher. Going for the Hellfire or something like that, I think is maybe a bit of an overstep in terms of clearing off the board completely. You just don't absolutely need it. Playing out the Giant here feels just as good, or a lot better, I should say.
Clearly, Furyhunter agrees with you, as that is a formidable board. However, Penhadani nourish into double Arcane Tyrant. Now that is a comeback turn. He can even play the Spellstone in hand to destroy the damaged Mountain Giant. This game's not over yet, Derek.
That's pretty absurd, I do have to say. Penhadani is very nice. He's a pretty good player at ramping up into the Ultimate Infestations. And as you said, the double copy of Arcane Tyrant really allows him to just fight back against these Giants, because, again, this Token Druid deck does not run Naturalize. It's not like the more popular Taunt Druid, which has a concrete answer to Giants. You have to deal with them the old-fashioned way, through just damage spells and minions to take them out.
Penhadani going to consider just going face with these 2/2s?
I shall
No, okay. I was wondering, because the Spellstone went into the taunt, if that meant there's a consideration of ignoring the Giant and letting Furyhunter come to him. But because of the Hellfire breakpoint there with the Giant on 4 and the 2/2s being very weak to that, I think this was far better.
Yes, I will agree with you there. I mean, if he had a card like Savage Roar or Branching Paths in hand, it was definitely worth considering a little bit more.
But now, Furyhunter has Twilight Drake plus Sunfury Protector. If he wants to play those cards and just create a pretty big wall that even Taunt Druid would fear a little bit there. And Penhadani's not going to have an easy way over that.
Absolutely, and for Furyhunter, in terms of hand reads, I think putting your opponent on exactly Ultimate Infestation in hand is a pretty fair assumption to make. They've just gone for ramp on that turn when, with this few cards in hand, generally in the Token Druid, you need cards to be clumped together to get the combos to work. So Nourish for draw would probably have been the option if the UI wasn't there. And therefore, Furyhunter can also assume that the rest of his hand doesn't do enough to fight back against this remaining Giant. So I love the play of taunting up the Drake, using that as a decoy, protecting the Giant. And then you're in a situation where you can just start hitting them over and over. And unless they hit Wild Growth off the top to be able to go to Ultimate Infestation a little bit quicker, you're probably going to be able to win the race a fair amount of the time.
Yeah, it would have been such an easy turn for Penhadani if Furyhunter did taunt up both minions, because the 4/4s just go into the Giant, job done. But as you said, this decoy sitting in the way has prevented Penhadani from making any of his attacks, and it's now sort of free reign for Furyhunter to do whatever he likes. He's got Spellstone in hand to deal with one of the minions on the board. He can easily trade away the others. And I don't think Ultimate Infestation is going to be enough. Not this game.
Oh, it's surprisingly tense, I would say. I mean, in this instance, Penhadani obviously didn't want to trade onto the board because he thinks his minions are more valuable than his opponent's, which is not necessarily a correct assumption in this scenario. Furyhunter has a lot of damage on board, and as you correctly stated, Spellstones take out the Teacher and then push everything else through to face, or maybe even not on the Teacher because you're only expecting one Ultimate Infestation to be played next turn. Basically, just turning up the heat as much as possible here for Furyhunter, smashing everything through to face really doesn't feel bad.
That is some heat. I would not like to be staring this board down on any day.
I love these face plays as well because, again, this is Token Druid. You do have to be afraid of a buff card, but Furyhunter pretty much knows that this is an Ultimate Infestation.
Yeah, and worst case scenario, the other's something like a Savage Roar, and that just wouldn't be enough.
Right.
As Penhadani does draw his first Savage Roar, now Furyhunter either has to win the game or control the board a little bit better, as with 5 additional cards in the hand, it's pretty much guaranteed that he'll have the damage he needs if the board remains this wide. But Furyhunter can still control this quite nicely.
Yeah, no really good trades, at least on the big minions available to Penhadani. He could obviously go for a double trade on the pesky little boys, or he could just go for everything to face if he wants to try and set up for double swipe or Savage Roar lethal on the following turn.
Look how good this Hellfire is now.
Yeah, that's a pretty good Hellfire.
So 4 off lethal with the Hellfire, if everything were to go face. As it's not lethal, Furyhunter may feel the need to deal with this 5/5 Ghoul as well. What is the... Are there any lethal outs with just the 5/5 on board?
Double swipe would only be 8, which wouldn't do it. Or double swipe hero power, would, altogether it would be, 14 damage, which
14,
wouldn't kill you. Unless you go for Hellfire on this turn, in which case it would kill you if you go for just Hellfire and not with the Spellstone.
I guess there's no reason not to play the Spellstone, though. May as well be safe, or at least put some through protection.
Just some defensive measure I absolutely expect from Furyhunter. Like, he will have done the maths and figured out either double swipe or Savage Roar swipe is lethal. It's way too dangerous to leave this up on the board for the moment.
Again, he's going to be thinking, how do I lose? Double swipe hero power is how you lose. Furyhunter has to play around it, and yeah, okay, he's gonna play the Spellstone.
Yeah, this is good. There's no really big minions in the Taunt Druid, in the Token Druid deck list. So using the Spellstone here, it feels perfectly good. He doesn't have too many minions on board, so obviously Spreading Plague is not doing the job at the moment for Penhadani. And outside of that exact copy of Spreading Plague, how does he get a wide board? What can he do here to maximize on the value of cards like Soul of the Forest and Savage Roar?
There's just nothing. He could double swipe, deal with the Giant, hero power to get rid of the Twilight Drake. That's dealing with Furyhunter's board, but it's not bringing him any closer to any sort of win condition. Looks like Spreading Plague is the way to go. And yeah, Soul of the Forest, okay, he's trying to guarantee that at least something sticks next turn.
And that is just going to be game with Spellbreaker attacking and Twilight Drake through to the face. Furyhunter with his counter Q of even Warlock into the Token Druid manages to bring things up 2 games to 1. He's looking to be in still a good spot to be taking this series. But at the same time, Penhadani does have the ability now to counter Q, if you will, against this even Warlock. And he's left, I believe, with his Odd Rogue.
And so we're very much back and forth here. We've seen this matchup the other way around earlier. And the Odd Rogue, well, Furyhunter's Odd Rogue was able to tear through Penhadani's even lock. So if history repeats itself, we could end up with the final game being Furyhunter's Druid versus Penhadani's Rogue.
Right, which obviously went in favor of Penhadani when it was reversed earlier on in the series, pretty decisively as well, dare I say.
So if history repeats itself, that's where we end up. But anything can happen in Hearthstone. Just because a deck is favored does not mean it wins all of the time. Where would be the fun in that? As Furyhunter is going to fight as hard as he can to overcome this Odd Rogue brutal start with his even Warlock. Wants to avoid the Fireflies, the Hench Clans, the Coldbloods, and the Argent Squires nice and early, but look at Penhadani's opening.
Yeah, this is pretty good. This is, I would say, what you're looking for the majority of the time. We've seen it so consistently. I mean, it's not as likely to go off as just Firefly Coldblood, because you obviously need another 1-drop activator for this Argent Squire to get the full effect of Coldblood. But my goodness, if it does pay off and you are able to get the full Coldblood effect on it, you're just looking to be so far ahead indeed.
Meanwhile, Furyhunter, he's trying to work out. These cards are usually great in an opening hand. Giants, awesome. Twilight Drakes, great to slam down on turn 4. Hellfire, awesome against aggro. None of this is really fast enough to keep up with Odd Rogue, though.
I don't know. Getting a Mounted Giant on turn 3, you are fairly likely to be taking a bit of damage in the meanwhile. But the thing is, Furyhunter has to be a little bit more optimistic than expecting 1-drop into Coldblood. If that's the situation anyway, he's so far behind that, I don't know, being able to drop a turn 3 Giant obviously protects him against the likes of Vicious Fledgling, of Hench Clan Thug, some of the slightly more mid-range minions, which he absolutely has to consider, because while this Odd Rogue can be incredibly aggressive, as we're about to see, it's got some decent mid-game in there as well.
Yeah, I really like the keep of the Hooked Reaver as well. Acknowledging, yeah, I'm probably going to get down to 15 health pretty quickly, maybe even by turn 4. If I can slam a 4-mana 7/7 Taunt at that point, maybe that will be enough to keep him afloat. As he's now had the bad news, it is going to be another one of those 5/1 Argent Squires. Plated Beetle comes down, which means no turn 3 Mountain Giant.
Yeah, a little bit more awkward now for Penhadani because Furyhunter managed to hit the 2-drop in that he cannot obviously just go, or I should say there's a downside now to going for the Vicious Fledgling because it would just be much more vulnerable to the likes of Defile, things like that. So instead, opting to clear it off with a dagger. This makes a lot of sense because still, just look at the crazy amount of damage that Penhadani is throwing forward here. Furyhunter has to find something still. This hand does not deal with it quite yet.
Wow, coin into Spellbreaker just to put a stop to that 5/1 Argent Squire. And again, like with the double Spellstone play on the other side of this matchup earlier, or the other side of the Rogue rather earlier, it just had to be done.
However, for Furyhunter, things all of a sudden are starting to look up drastically. The keep of Mountain Giant, obviously with a Coldblood play, has not worked out for him. But on the following turn, after Fledgling comes down, throw out the Hellfire. Your board, opponent's board is clear. You are then activating the health total for the Hooked Reaver as well, which is so important here.
Oh.
But Penhadani taking it even slower, respecting the Hellfire.
Some crazy mind games going on here because now Furyhunter is much more likely to play a Twilight Drake. As we saw, he did just receive that card off of the top of his deck. I really don't think there's a better play here. He'd love to play the Hooked Reaver as a 7/7 taunt, but unfortunately he's not quite taken the damage yet. So yeah, the perfect Hellfire to clear up the Fledgling into the Hooked Reaver turns haven't quite sequenced the way he'd have liked.
It's true, but on the following turn, I think There's a good chance he will be allowed to go for Hooked Reaver for the full 7/7 value, because probably more than 3 damage connects through to his face. Whether or not he decides to is another question entirely, because obviously Penhadani is then looking to set up for one drop into the Valspine Slayer,
right.
at least where Furyhunter is sitting from. Obviously, we can see Penhadani does not have that possibility, but this is Hearthstone. Furyhunter is going to be afraid of that possibility from his opponent, and maybe just the fear of it being so dominant could stop Furyhunter from making the best plays available to him.
And these are all things that make these guys such good players, like working so hard to play around what they know is in their opponent's decks. But sometimes the players can make plays that end up having worse results, even because they've been playing so well. And that's something that the best players fall into quite often, as Funkelmancer is causing even more damage, and Furyhunter down to 10. Hooked Reaver is an option, but he's going to be so afraid of Valspine Slayer here.
He is, but now becomes the situation for Furyhunter where he is clearly so far behind at the moment in terms of board control, health total, all the things that matter in this matchup, that he might just be thinking, I'm going to take a big risk. If I'm going to have any chance, I need to be making risky plays, because if they do pay off, then he starts to come back into the map.
But which risk does he take? Does he play around Valspine Slayer, or does he play around Leroy Jenkins? Because playing Hellfire and trading away the Diamond is another option, but then Leroy just kills him.
I think in this instance, this is the right play, because it's a 2-card combo you have to play around for Valspine Slayer. Obviously, there's 2 Valspines in your deck, but I think actually looking at it, if you don't lose to Leroy right away anyway, you're in such a bad spot that you may as well go all in on the plan that even though they do have the ability to kill this off on the board, it weakens their stuff so much that on the following turn you can go, I don't know, double Sun Fury Protector or something to lock down the board in your favor.
And now, finally, Penhadani is in a position where he's having to slow down a little bit. Yeah, he can clear up the Hooked Reaver. It looks like he's going to, but he does need to swing that weapon in, and he can't deal with the Twilight Drake at the same time, which means Furyhunter does have his foot in the door. He can start to do some damage, again, to Penhadani's side of the board.
I'd say he's got an ankle in the door at this point. This is, his leg's getting pretty far in that door. Defile at some point will surely be able to at least help the breakpoints with the trades. He's obviously going to be taking at least 3 damage on the following turn. He just needs that 1 healing card to be able to pull this back, be it Spellstone, be it the Shroom Brewer, be it through on a few turns, the Gul'dan itself.
This is a pretty tricky play, actually. He's just going to go with the Mountain Giant, which is a little bit on the risky side, but maybe this would have been playing too safe, but I was looking at the double Sun Fury Protector turn.
Blink Fox comes off the top. It's going to have to be something pretty impressive.
Oh.
Is that Glinda?
Glinda is quite impressive in her own way, but not necessarily with this hand.
I mean, yeah, not with a 9-mana card. You're not getting much echo value out of that one, I would say. So Furyhunter now wondering, is he allowed to go for Hellfire first? Setting up for Hellfire into the Sun Fury Protector obviously looks to me to be a pretty strong way of going about this. You're only really vulnerable at that point to 3 damage burst, of which I don't think there's actually all that much.
Again, we're seeing how powerful a tool the Sun Fury Protector can be. It's just like old Handlock in that respect, taunting up both of the big minions. Hellfire is an option, but we're getting so risky here. SI7 Agent would potentially finish him off. Leroy, again, obviously, if Hellfire was the... Well, I guess Hellfire into Sun Fury Protector again is...
I mean, that just has to be the thing he's looking at. It's clearing off the opponent's board entirely. You have a minion at 5 health. 3 damage burst is what's needed to get through. I suppose with this line of play, though, you're not vulnerable all of a sudden to some of the things like Soulfire, SI7 Agents, something that could maybe push it back in your opponent's favor. Either way, this is a tremendously powerful taunt wall that Fury has set up. And also, more importantly, he's set up very easily lethal on the following turn. It's looking to me like Penhadani just doesn't have the ability to clear off these giant minions from the Even Warlock.
He doesn't know. He can't even summon 2 charging South Sea deckhands, which he'd like to with the Glinda, but unfortunately with no dagger out, they won't have the ability to charge or make any of the big trades. I can't see any way that Penhadani saves himself. It is looking very much like Furyhunter is about to become the DreamHack Summer champion. There's the well played. Furyhunter gives a fist bump, and there we go. Hellfire gives him the lethal he needs. He has done it.
What a deserving player to be our champion here at DreamHack Summer. He has been so consistently grinding away in tournaments and on ladder, had some decent performances at DreamHacks before, but finally has got himself a victory. And it's pretty due, I would say, to get to this point and solidify his name as a tour stop champion, as well as a DreamHack champion.
We are going to see big things coming from Furyhunter soon, don't you think, Cora?
I do, Falcone. Thanks for asking. I was just going to say, what an awesome end to this tournament. Furyhunter is so incredibly deserving. He had a deck named after him. He used that deck, piloted it all the way to the finals to win this tour stop. And the DreamHack Summer 2018 champion, Furyhunter. Let's welcome him to the desk. We can get a couple of words with him. What an awesome tournament it has been. First and foremost, dude, congratulations. Awesome job. Gotta ask, how are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling great. I was never expecting to win DreamHack. It's like a dream come true. And I'm really glad I did it with Odd Warrior, my favorite deck.
I'm so glad you did it with Odd Warrior. It was so much fun to watch. I mean, obviously, that Warrior is your namesake deck. Did you ever consider not bringing it to this tournament?
I considered Crest Warrior because it's pretty popular right now, but I was pretty much sold on the Odd Warrior.
Yeah.
Furyhunter, I have to ask, how were you feeling when your Odd Warrior got banned there for the finals? Was that a bit of a letdown for you, or were you still feeling good?
That was a bit of a shame because I really wanted to win the final with the Odd Warrior, but a win is a win. I'll take it.
So talk to us a little bit about what you have been up to up until this point. You've been competing in tour stops. Obviously, you've had incredible ladder results, but now that you have this tour stop win, has all of your preparation been worth it, I guess?
Yeah, it has. I've really been playing a lot of Hearthstone, and I'm going to take a year off from school and stuff to play Hearthstone to try and become a professional. So this is a good step in the right direction. So
I think that is certainly a good step. It's always a risk to take away from studies to pursue something like Hearthstone as a career, but getting that tour stop championship, that victory in the finals here at DreamHack Summer, well, that has to be a really, really nice catalyst for those life choices. But moving forward, into the next steps, I suppose. You're taking a year off school. I'm assuming we're going to be seeing you in playoffs this season?
Yeah, I hope so. Like, I need the ladder results, but it should be fairly easy after this. So.
Yeah, pretty good getting all these points. It should be at least a much easier road getting to the playoffs. Derek, you have any questions for our champion?
No real questions. Just wanted to say congratulations, mate. It's been a long time coming, and I'm glad you made it.
Thank you. One last thing. I want to shout out some guys.
Absolutely. Go right ahead.
It's mostly Danish boys. Belorix, I've prepped a lot with him this tournament, so huge shout out to him. Shout out to Chacha boys and Alex Noir, the Danish pirate boys. Also, check out my stream. I'm gonna start streaming when I take a year off school. So yeah.
Awesome. What's the Twitch handle?
It's Furyhunter HS.
Awesome. Well, make sure you check him out. Your DreamHack Summer 2018 champion is Furyhunter. Derek, would you please present our champion with his trophy?
Here you go, my friend. Your very own DreamHack box.
Thank you.
Well, there's a little something inside of it. We decided to go a little bit edgier as far as trophies are concerned this year. But your DreamHack Summer 2018 champion is Furyhunter. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
So deserving. And you know what? I think this proves the caster curse is non-existent. We've all in your corner, man, and now you are the champion. So congratulations again. What an awesome result. But that is going to do it for us here at DreamHack Summer 2018. The HCT Grand Prix has officially come to a close, and Furyhunter is your champion. So After the last month, it's been a bit rapid fire with all of our DreamHack events, starting with Tour, then Austin, and now DreamHack Summer. We are going to be taking a bit of time off. We're going to be back with DreamHack Montreal in September. But to everyone who tuned in this weekend or for the past several events, we want to thank you so much. Congratulations again to Furyhunter and all of the players in our top 16. They performed so well, and it is such an achievement to get that far. But Furyhunter is the champion today. That's going to be it for us right now. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We will see you in Montreal in September. Have a great night.